addicted mother. And so coming into the world, I was already pumped with heroin. I found myself at 13 being abused by my stepfather. I stopped caring about myself, not knowing what I wanted to do.
Jaymie Gerena, international speaker and transformational coach.
My whole life just felt like such an abandonment. And the only thing that I could remember after going through my divorce, I'm sitting on the floor of my apartment, just in full surrender. Please take me. I'm done. And it was in that moment that I just received this beautiful download, this sound that came into my spirit. If you can't find the light, it's time to be the light.
Welcome to another episode of the Real Mentors podcast. Real stands for Real Examples Altering Lives. And today, my guest in studio is Ms. Jaymie Gerena, who's an international speaker, soon-to-be author, and transformational coach, amongst so many other things. And I'm proud to call her a friend of the show and a friend of mine. Such an awesome, inspiring story that we hope to share with you today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super honored to be here as one of your guests in person. So I'm glad I'm local enough to drive through.
Yes. I know it's we were discussing, it's a point of contention where do we do virtual or do we do in person? And even though you're in New Jersey and I'm in Long Island, that could be a 4-hour each way drive depending what time you leave.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for coming out and blessing us with your presence. I want to get right into it. I know your story. You're a transformational coach. Well, what do you consider yourself? What kind of coach? I personally consider myself a transformational coach. What do you consider yourself to be?
It's transformation, right? It's the journey through helping people ascend to the version of themselves that they desire to become. So it's the shifting of the identity, and then it's the elevating of the actions, habits, disciplines to get there. So transformation.
Yes, absolutely. And we all have the power to do so. And your ability to be the person that you are today versus where you came from is phenomenal, to say the least. So just to give you a little bit of a backstory, Jaymie and I shared a vocal coach by the name of Matt Bertho. Shout out to Matt. Shout out to Matt. Just a Kansas boy who happened to reach out to me. Now I know, not by chance, by divine intervention. Reached out to me and proposed the idea of doing some vocal coaching through Instagram. And then we trained virtually together. And on the first session, Matt was able to get me to talk about my experience having gone to prison, which has been like getting over a hump for a decade and a half. I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't want to share it. And I meet this guy from Kansas virtually, and the first thing we talk about is that. So that was the door that opened first. And then he hosted an event in New York on mute, and Jaymie was one of the morning speakers, and she came on and shared her story. And I wasn't going to share about my prison story in front of his audience. I was just going to talk about business and transformation that I've, had with my body and in my life and in my thinking and spiritually. And then I heard your story. And I heard Joanna's story, who's another amazing young lady who shared a similar story of overcoming trauma and abuse. And I was like, there's no way that I'm not telling my story with you having the courage to do that. So I want you to tell the audience how you got to this place. And I want us to go back to the beginning and what you went through, because I think that so many people are going through it and don't see a way out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first things first, life for me upon birth was difficult. I was a infant to a drug-addicted mother, right? And so coming into the world, I was already pumped with heroin, and navigating life in that way, in a household that just never felt settled, in a household that never felt safe. It was having to navigate a lot of tough situations. And so growing up, two parents that were drug-addicted, gang-affiliated, I remember just from the earliest memories seeing blood as my life. And so being raised with a dad who was in and out of jail my entire life, stepdads in and out of my life, I found myself at 13 being abused by my stepfather. And it was something that I kept to myself. I didn't share it until I decided one day to tell my brother about it. And my brother went to my mom, and my mom came to me. And it was one of those situations where I wasn't believed in the beginning. And I went through this transition where I stopped caring about myself and I stopped caring about my body. And I remember dropping out of high school at 16 years old, 17 years old, and not knowing what I wanted to do. My dad was in and out of the hospital at this time because his body just couldn't bear the weight of the countless drugs that he was taking in. And I remember sitting with him on his deathbed and having a deep conversation. He had told my whole family, my whole big Puerto Rican family, to leave the room. And we were sitting there, and I just remember him trying to apologize for everything and for not being there and for not being present and not raising me. And it was one of those moments where I didn't even know what forgiveness looked like, but I was able to hand over this part of me that held on to so much anger and pain. And I was just like, if you're ready to go, you can go. And I remember getting the call from my uncle, and he was just like, Beba, your dad passed. And it was one of those moments where it was a defining moment for me. I remember receiving the phone call in a car, and I took in the information, and I was like, okay. Maybe about a month later, I sold my car. I sold everything that I owned, and I bought a one-way ticket to California, and I didn't look back. So at that time, I found myself, by a couple months in, married, pregnant to a Marine, and just, all right, cool. We have a family. I'm trying to build the family that I never had. But unfortunately, when you don't heal through what you go through, you kind of carry the same stories and the same situations and repeat the same patterns. And so I found myself divorced at the end of it after having 2 children with this man. And during that process, I get another phone call from my uncle. Beba, your brother, Jay, is dead. And it was just abandonment after abandonment. My parents abandoned me. My dad passed away. My brother left. I was going through a divorce. My whole life just felt like such an abandonment. And the only thing that I could remember after going through my divorce and being a single mother was this next level of abandonment when I'm sitting on the floor of my apartment and my kids are with their dad. And it's just me, single mom, broke as all hell, no college education because I dropped out of high school, not knowing how I was going to provide or what I was going to do, dealing with the emotions of postpartum. And I remember just in full surrender. Like when I say surrender, it wasn't this surrender like, I trust you, God. It was a surrender like, please take me. I'm done. And it was in that moment that I just received this beautiful download, and no one was there with me. I was by myself, but it was just this sound that came into my spirit. And it was just like, if you can't find the light, it's time to be the light. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew Google would.
So this wasn't that far back.
Nope. So I went to Google and I typed in how to be happy. That's the only thing that I could muster. The only thing that I could be like, all right, I don't know what happiness feels like. I don't know what it's supposed to be. I don't know how my body's supposed to feel. But all I'm seeking in my life is happiness. So I went to Google. I typed in how to be happy, and guess who showed up? The big man, Tony Robbins.
Hey, my guy. Shout out to Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. And it was one of his videos. It was like a throwback video of a man who was suicidal. And it was one of those moments where I was facing my absolute surrender, like, God, take me if there's nothing here for me. And it was a beautiful intervention that I had. It was like watching someone else's intervention was an intervention for me. And when I tell you I dove into personal development, I became obsessed. I read 16 books in 3 months.
Wow.
I was waking up and going to bed with audios to rewire my unconscious mind so that I could think differently, so that I could feel differently, so I could have an ounce of joy. And I became obsessed with how the mind works, and I became obsessed with change because I didn't know that you could. I just thought that you were born into your circumstances and that's how life would be and that's all it will ever be. And it was the first moment that I had this ability to think differently. And so from there, I joined a network marketing company. I ran 2 levels away from the top of the company in a matter of just a couple of months.
Wow.
I was able to fully provide for my children and myself. And then from there, I was like, if anyone's ever been in network marketing, you know it's all around personal development, right? And leadership and learning all of these skills. And so I fell in love with that. Yes. And I was like, I can do this myself. I kind of want to branch out and do my own thing with my coaching. And so I just started sharing my story online. And it started igniting like wildfire. I mean, people started reaching out to me, asking for support, how you do it, how you don't do it, how I went through my journey. And that's where it all began for me.
I think people are not aware of just how common abuse is. And you didn't point to it, but I know it's sexual abuse. And 1 in 4 women will experience sexual abuse. And these are old statistics. I don't know what they are now.
Right.
1 in 10 men will experience sexual abuse at some point in their life. And it's probably going to be during the early stages of life. And, I've read that life is never the same.
Yeah.
Once that happens to you. And the reality is you found the light in yourself. Something. There's always a voice. There's always something. And you were called to listen to it because you had nothing else to lose. You were literally down on your knees, giving up. And that's when the magic happens. When you give over control. And not like you said, not like, please help me. It was like, I fucking give up. Just take me because I can't deal with this anymore. How long is that process between that message you received, that download, as you beautifully said it, and you starting to dive into the network marketing? What's the time frame now?
A month.
Wow. So this is almost instantaneous.
It was instant for me, but I think the only reason why is because I didn't have any other options. I completely chose in that moment to release all other options, and I went full force on myself. And I think just becoming so obsessed with personal development and watching every single video that I possibly could, like I got to the point where I sold my car to hire my first coach. When I tell you I went all in and I left nothing on the table, I was at this place where I've already lost everything in my life before. I've already lost 2 of the people in my life that I loved greatly. What the hell do I care if I lose a fucking car, right? Like, cool, I'll figure it out. Everything's in walking distance. I have another little backup hoopty. Like, I'll figure it out. I don't care.
And it's Cali, so you need one.
I went all in. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
how or where do you get this understanding of the value of coaching? Had you heard it before? Because we know it now.
Yeah.
But it took me a while. I was one of those guys that I'll figure it out on my own. I didn't realize the value of coaching till way later in life. Almost recently, to be honest with you. I see people struggling at the gym and winging it. And they're basically look the same, stay the same since we've been lifting together for years or, in proximity in the gym.
Right.
And I'm like, you need a coach. Like in my head, I don't tell them that, but I have a coach for almost every aspect of my life.
Every area.
And I am much better off for it. So where do you get this idea that coaching is the solution of sorts?
Well, I always say listen to your inner guidance system because it's loud enough for you to hear it, but sometimes it's a gentle whisper, right? Like we all have it within us, but we silence it. But we hear it. It's that lingering voice that will not turn off. And you're just like, all right, fine. What do you want, right? We all have that inner compass. And for me, every time I would hear someone of leadership speak, there was a part of me that I want to say desired what that felt like. I wanted to know what it felt like to lead someone in an inspiring way, or people that were happy, people that looked like they had it together. There was this yearning, there was this desire to be like that. And I thought to myself, if I want to be like that, how do they do it? What do they do? How does this work? And that's when I got into coaching. That's when I got into hiring my own coach to teach me how to coach. And so that was really early on in my journey, but I learned all of this stuff through the books that I was reading. and through the videos that I was watching on YouTube. So when I decided to dive in, Tony was my introduction. And we know Tony talks about coaching, and we know that he's an incredible coach. And so for him to be one of my first exposures, I mean, it was a game changer.
That was mine. It was Awaken the Giant Within in a prison cell.
Yeah.
And learning NLP. And I was able to take a moment in my life when I was 20 years old and I was speaking on the stage at Bronx Community College. I was the president of the Honor Society there. I was a little younger. The average age of community college in the Bronx is 27. Average. So you've got grandmothers that go back to school for either a better position or an education they never had or missed because they have children. And here I am, this young kid, on stage during orientation, and I moved so many people. And I moved some of the women in the crowd to tears because as the child of a single mother, I knew that struggle. And there were so many single mothers in that audience. And I knew then that that's what I was meant to do. So back to Tony and NLP in a prison cell, I learned how to manifest, or not manifest, I learned how to envision that moment where I could put myself on that stage and I would be this drone camera and I could circle myself and I could turn myself. And NLP is basically neuro-linguistic programming. So it's the ability, correct me if I'm wrong, and please do, it's been a while, to put yourself in a situation probably that you've been through and just ingrain it into your brain and use it as power. And then you would attach some motion. And for me, it was pumping my fist like this and being in that moment. So close my eyes. I'm on that stage. I'm starting to envision it. And I just pump my fist to give myself that power and that feeling that I felt.
Yeah.
Being able to move those people. And I know that you're also a neuro-linguistic programming teacher. Tell us a little bit, or tell our audience a little bit about NLP, how that works, and how it can benefit anybody in their everyday life.
So, I mean, NLP just comes down to the ability, our brain's ability to store information and understanding how our brain is wired and how it becomes programmed at such an early age. And so when you understand the mind and you understand how information gets stored, you have a better opportunity of programming yourself for success. And so I didn't have the success tools that we needed growing up because I grew up in a state of survival, right? And so I had to unlearn what I learned and instill new programming. And so I know that people think like, well, isn't that a form of manipulation? I would rather be manipulated for success than failure, my friend, right?
Every day.
There are some people, you can give the best person the right tools and they can succeed. You can give the wrong person the right tools and they can do harm with it, right? I think that utilizing tools in the right hands is something that's incredibly powerful. And so when it comes to NLP, if you can shift the way that you see things in your reality in your mind and create a projection of that in a reality in your physical world, wouldn't you want to do that? I think that we become so stuck on our lack that we program ourselves to think in a sense of lack. But your reality, your frequency is what you allow yourself to frequently see in your reality and your external. So when you instill new behaviors, new disciplines, new success ways of thinking, your reality can shift. And I think that more people need to understand that how you think right now, if you don't like it, if you are not getting the results that you desire, you can change that at any given moment by trying to get to the root cause of why you think that way in the first place, and then shifting the behaviors that allow you to think that way, elevating your emotions, and then being able to instill a new meaning to the circumstances that you faced.
You're giving it a different explanation, a different value, a different meaning.
Yep.
And one of the other speakers that day when we met was Allison Lager, who's also a guest on the show. And she told me something and gave it to me in a way that I understood it more clearly, which is that we are essentially running a program.
Yep.
And that program was installed between the ages of 0 and 7. And we are unknowingly running that program. You're somebody who was programmed with abuse, drugs, crime, gangs. I remember you telling a story about pulling the needle out of one of your parents' arms.
Yep, my mom.
Holy shit. And that is programming that we're completely unaware of. So this trauma can be overcome. This trauma, whatever trauma you have experienced in your life, female, male, or any way that you identify, you can overcome it. But it is a choice. You have to want to overcome it. And then you have to seek out the tools, and you have to listen to that voice, because I know there's very few people that are going through pain that truly want to stay in that place. How can someone take that first step? Feelings of hopelessness. They're alone. They're lacking love. They're lacking that good programming. They are now an adult or a young adult. And we see it in society all too often with this mental health crisis. I like to think of it as a lack of action crisis. Like if you go out and you do something as opposed to staying on your phone or in front of some kind of electronic device, you're more likely to feel differently. So what are some of the things that someone going through this can do? Basic, just basic, to kind of awaken that need, that desire for more to change, just to get rid of that pain. Because it's not natural for us to be in that space.
No, it's not. I mean, pain is a choice, right? Or suffering is a choice. Pain comes into our lives, and it's up to us to be able to transmute that pain into our power. And so one of my missions is helping people to understand that your pain, your past is not your prison. It could actually become your greatest asset. When you understand that you have been placed on this earth with a series of things that you were supposed to experience and you were supposed to transmute into your purpose. Everything that we've experienced out of our lives could be the very thing that ends our suffering if you can look at it differently. And so people look at me and they're like, okay, so your abuse starting from the age of 2 to 14 or 13 was your greatest gift. My absolute greatest gift. My pain that I've endured, the losses that I've endured, the abandonment that I've faced, oh my God, I could cry thinking about it in a good way, because it's given me the heart that I have to serve other people. Me going through the amount of pain and suffering that I've gone through and going to the places that most people are not comfortable to go through, being able to feel how bad things have been gives me the pleasure of being able to enjoy how good it is. Because if you can't go through the depths of your emotions, you can't appreciate how good life can be. And so the number one step that I tell every single one of my clients when they come in is, okay, we know where you've been, but paint a picture for me on where you want to go. What do you want to feel when you get there? And it's the process through shifting your emotional code, your frequency, your emotions, and elevating your thoughts to be in alignment with the emotions that you desire to feel. So an example of this is in the past, I was used to sadness, shame, pain, abandonment, fear, guilt, etc. But I desired to feel emotions of joy, peace, happiness. How do we bridge that gap? Well, you would look at someone that you want to model. You would look at someone who appears to be happy and fulfilled, and you'd ask them, you'd say, okay, what do you do in a day? What are your habits? What are your behaviors? 9 times out of 10, they are working on their physical body. Anyone who's listening, your physical body is going to be the way that you expedite raising your emotions, because you get to change your physiology. And we've learned this from Tony, the triad of life, right? It comes down to your focus, it comes down to your physiology, and it comes down to your ability to change the language or the meaning of what we're facing. And so the number one thing is move your body. Look up at the sky. You can't be negative when you're bringing oxygen into your lungs, when you're working out your muscles, when you're running. Your brain becomes so silent in that moment, and the only thing that you have is you and source.
Right.
And so the number one thing is move your body.
I couldn't agree more. As someone who was always a fat kid and has lost massive amounts of weight throughout their life. I tell the story when I'm on stage that I've lost over a ton in my life. Now, obviously, I've never weighed 2,000 pounds, but in the journey
in the
of
span.
conquering, my problem with food and wearing my pain in the form of food or drinking too much. I realized that I did the math. I would gain 50 pounds and then lose 50 because I'm a big dude. So I could put on 10 pounds in a week and I could lose 10 pounds in a week. So multiply that over time.
Yeah.
And that shit is a testament. When you're in the gym, you're literally having a conversation with yourself, with your body. You're lifting that weight. And when you're getting to those last few reps where the real growth is at, when you're literally tearing your muscle so that it can then repair itself and grow back stronger, there's no fucking thought of what happened to me back then.
Right.
You're not even really thinking about what is on your schedule later today. You are having a conversation with that weight. And more importantly, you're having a conversation with your own self-belief that you can get that weight up even when it's hard. So I'm glad you brought that up because I think that that's the number one thing that anybody who's in a state of sadness or depression or feeling less than can do to make themselves feel better. It's get movement going. And that doesn't have to be weights. Right. That could be going for a walk.
Yep.
A 10-minute walk. That could be going up the stairs if you live on the second floor as opposed to taking the elevator or the third or the fifth, however far you want to take it. But it is very tough to be depressed when you are moving and when you are in nature. It could even be wintertime in the Northeast and the trees are bare and it's cold as fuck. You're going to take that walk. The wind hitting your face is going to wake you up. And I think it can't be stated enough that if anybody wanted to start themselves on the path, with no resources. The one thing you have is 2 legs and a body that's meant for movement. Human beings were literally designed for movement.
Right.
I share this also, and I think I shared it when I spoke with you. It was human beings are the greatest long-distance runners in the history of the planet. We can run down animals. Now, they could run faster than us, but they can't run further than us. So that's a testament to the fact that we were designed to move. And I think once we started building couches and air conditioning and television, we got so far away from that. And one of the easiest ways that we can start on the path to recovery and overcoming some of our own bullshit is by moving. Now, let's circle back to the trauma and this mental health crisis that we are having now. Are your clients predominantly women or exclusively women?
Mainly women, yeah. Okay. However, we do have a couple of men that tend to circle in and out.
Okay. And what would be something or a theme that you're hearing repeatedly, just so that our viewers know that they're not alone? Because when you get into these rooms or you get into self-development or you get into a good circle of people that want to lift you up, you realize, I'm not the only one going through this. So what are some of the constant themes that you're hearing from some of your clients?
When it comes to the mindset type of work that we're doing within the containers, it always comes down to I'm too much, or I'm not enough, or I don't know enough, or I don't have the confidence that I need to do blank. So women are interesting. We can bear...
She said it, not me.
We can bear a lot, and we're emotional creatures. But the thing that tends to hold us back is going to be ourselves. And it's going to be the things that we tell ourselves. And I would say that's for men too, right? But men typically take action on things while women kind of sulk and need to talk about it. And so when we talk about it, we then fester up more negative emotions about it, which then keeps us stuck even more in our mind. And so I would say that one of the core things that I find as a repeating pattern is this sense of like unworthiness and this sense of also being too much at the same time. So how could you be not enough and too much at the same time? Which then comes back down to the identity work. And so I always start, I don't care if you've built a 10-figure company. If you come to me, the first step we are doing is the identity work. Who do you believe you are about yourself? Because your progression, your success is going to be truth within your identity every time. Whether you are failing or whether you are succeeding, there is part of your identity and beliefs that you've created that will show up in your external reality due to what you told yourself about yourself. And so, as an example, I used to be in this state of survival, and I used to tell myself I always make enough just to cover my bills, or there's never enough, right? And that became my reality until I was like, I'm actually casting a spell on myself through the belief systems and the things that I'm choosing to tell myself. And so how do you change that? You go to a place in yourself where you're like, that's no longer truth for me. And you point out ways to prove yourself right. And so as an example, you're like, okay, well, I've proved to myself in the past that I could be more abundant because I just found a penny on the ground. Cool. Put that in your pocket, in the bucket of your mind of, I just proved myself wrong. There is always more than enough. I found a penny.
Right.
Someone bought my lunch. I got a coffee in line. Okay, I'm abundant. I've even gotten into this little hack, right, where I'll go to the grocery store. And at this point, for my family, like our grocery bill is maybe like $400 a week just to feed us, right? So you would go to the store and you're like, damn, 400? Like, all right, here,
damn
take
eggs.
my card. Like, the eggs alone are like $20. Like, Jesus. Okay, here we go. So you swipe your card. I started getting into the habit of whenever I swipe my card, that's actually them giving me money. And so I swipe the card and I say, thank you. And I will never forget this one time. I get home after going grocery shopping, after swiping my card and being like, deep breath. Okay, thank you. I appreciate you for giving me $400 more. I get home, I get into the driveway, and I go, ding, my Stripe account. Someone paid me $400.
Wow.
And it was just so interesting because you can create your reality by what you teach your nervous system. Mm-hmm. And what you teach your nervous system becomes like the new emotional code that you create. So if you believe and begin to think in abundance, that is what you will receive. If you are in survival and having to grip things to hold on to them, you are always going to be in lack. So choose differently.
It's so fascinating because I'm part of one of Tony and Dean's pretty exclusive masterminds, Zenith Mastermind. And there are some heavy, heavy hitters in that room. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't go in thinking I'm less than, I don't belong here, I don't deserve this. But when the time came, I knew the value, not only financially, but just in life of being in a room like that, next to people like that. And I seized the moment. And I shared and I talked and I was unapologetically me. And I actually nudged one of the guys, was like, bro, you know, we paid to be here. You better start sharing. And, you know, he thanked me later. And this is an awesome guy who's done amazing things. And it's amazing that no matter how successful you are, there's still a feeling of I am not enough. And though I felt that I was not enough in the business sense when I compared myself to these other people, which we know is the kiss of death comparison. Yep. We are all living our own life and our own journey, and that's really all that matters. Now, everybody else are players in our story, but when we start comparing ourselves to what someone else has or what they've accomplished, we are always going to feel less than. So I try not to make that mistake, but I tried instead to say, well, what am I bringing to the room? What value? How am I going to impact somebody? I know that I'm closer to the ground than I am to the sun. Yep. So how am I going to share with somebody who's up here what life still looks like down here as I'm climbing to get up there? What I was pleasantly surprised to see was that the people that were up here, some of them were extremely humble and did not lose sight of that. And you know what that gave me? A window into what my own future and my family's future is going to look like. Because that was a bullshit story that I was telling myself, that there's no way I'm going to get to this level of wealth and success and not sell out or give up on my family or lose my wife and screw up my kids. Right. And here I saw somebody doing it who's written books on it and gave a presentation. And for all the people that presented, including Tony Robbins, that guy was the most powerful 15 minutes. Chad Wilderson, my friend, thank you very much. I appreciate you. What an awesome human being. And what a guiding light for somebody like me who on paper looks nothing like this guy. We have two completely different lives, but I know that I want the same level of success, but more importantly, familial success that he has. And we don't know that vision. So you talked about vision. Now, my vision, being in that room, has changed dramatically for what my life can and will be. And I say will because just like that card, thank you. I got $400 coming to me. And I've done that. So most people are living what they feel they can accomplish. What are some of the practices? What are some of the techniques? Or what are some of the workshops? What are some of the simple things that you can do to help them create this vision, but without limitation? Because it's always our first inclination to place more when we're writing a goal or our futures. The big thought comes in and then the small thought goes on paper because this is more realistic. What's that look like when you're working one-on-one with your clients?
I mean, I believe that it's dreaming into the potentiality of what's possible. Now, there's a difference between what we think is possible for us, but then there's a difference between what we may think is possible for our children. And I think that it's important to remember that we were once children who didn't have a cap, who dreamed so big that our dreams could fill up the world, could fill up this space that we're in right now. And I think that it's important to remember that that version of yourself is still inside of you, and you have to speak to them. Speaking to them and reminding them that it's okay to dream big, and reminding them that it's okay to think of the potentiality, right? Like, what is your potential? If you did not have a cap on your life, what would you want to do? What would you like to experience? Where would you like to travel? What languages would you like to learn? And put it on paper, because I think that there are those times where you're like, I want to make this much money a month. And you're like, that's insane. And then you don't put that number on paper. You put the smaller one that you think is more realistic.
Isn't that fucking crazy?
But don't do that. Don't do that. And maybe in the beginning, you want to just set some realistic goals.
I hate that word.
I have never been the person who did that, like, goal setting in that way. Make sure it's realistic. Make sure you put the time limit on it. Because what happens if you're like, I want to make $1 million this month, and you could have done it in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
You could have done it in 24 hours,
There's
right?
people that make it a day.
You could have
an hour.
Exactly. Exactly. You could have progressed. You could have what you could have done in 5 minutes. You've now elongated to 30 days.
I'm also going to point to my buddy Chad, who has a coaching program, and he wanted to scale it, I think 4X, and he gave himself 3 or 4 years. And here comes my cocky ass. I kind of walk into the breakout, and I'm like, but why 4 years or 2 years, whatever number he had written down? And I was like, why would it take you that long?
Yeah.
And again, he's a very logical thinker, and he explained something to that effect, which was, well, I've got to, plan to scale it. And I'm just the dreamer.
Yeah.
So that's the value I bring to the room.
Yeah.
It's the lack of a limitation. Now, do I have doubts? Of course, everybody has fucking doubts. We're human beings. But we prime ourselves to dream big without limitations. Now, what's been the power of that in your life? Because coming from where you came from, Connecticut, Puerto Rican gangs, heroin, abuse.
All of the things.
Bus to California, 2 kids, husband's gone. Download this. I mean, what is that? Where'd you get this dream? Where'd you get the courage to dream so big? And obviously, the coaching and all that. But where did that start for you? Were you dreaming as a kid to get out of this, even in survival mode? How far back does that go? How deep does that go for you to have transformed your life so dramatically?
I think that we all have dreamed. Out of the womb, I feel like we've all had these dreams. I remember I don't even know, maybe I was like 4 or 5, but I remember asking for a karaoke machine because I had visions of being an American Idol and singing. And where does that come from, right? We're born with certain gifts. And it's funny because that microphone of singing karaoke turned to the microphone of singing and speaking on stages, singing my truth. Right? Maybe it's not singing, but it's still communicating and it's still talking into this mic right now, right? And so I think that it was born in me. I truly do believe that our purpose is already instilled in us the moment that we come into this earth. And our life journey is about unlearning so that we can remember with Source. So that we can become one with Source again to tap into our infinite potential. But that only comes with our ability to decide the type of person that we want to be. And it's also our willingness to get silent. You have to be willing to sit with yourself so that you can understand what is still coming up for you. You want to know yourself? Sit in silence. You want to know yourself? You want to know what your limitations are? Sit with yourself in silence long enough for all of your shit to hit the surface, because that will be the fastest way to growth for you, and the fastest way for you to understand yourself, and the fastest way for you to connect with your spirit.
I've heard that before. Who's a Buddhist teacher? He's pretty popular. I can't remember the name offhand, but he's written a ton of books, Oprah and all that good stuff. And he said the same thing, that we should allow ourselves a certain amount of time, if not every day, once a week, once a month, whenever we can, put the fucking phone down, turn the TV off, be still, if it needs to be dark, whatever, no distractions whatsoever, and just listen to that voice. And I think that we, in today's society, do the exact opposite. We do anything we can to not hear that voice.
But that's
I did
why,
it for so long.
Yeah, but that's why everyone's stuck in this state of psychosis. Everyone's stuck on a dopamine high. Everyone's stuck on social media and comparison and lack. Their vibration is so low because they have no fucking idea who they are.
Right.
They have no idea who they are and what they stand for. And so every single media download that comes into their ear, they believe it because they don't have the locus of stability within themselves. They are not accessing their own internal power. And they have no solid foundation of their identity or source, right? And so they're kind of just floating. And I always say, you want to find out who you are. One, put yourself under tension, push yourself, get uncomfortable, build your emotional intelligence, and also sit with yourself. Figure out why you are the way that you are and ask yourself, do I even like this person that I am? And if not, start to experience new things that you like, or that you would like, or that you would like to see if you would like. Go skydiving, go work out, go shoot guns, do whatever the hell you want to do, right? Try new things so you can see what brings you happiness and what brings you joy.
You and I sitting here having a conversation, having done so much of the inner work, having been through the bullshit and come out the other side because we were mature and responsible enough to look for answers within ourselves and then look to others for guidance. What can we say to the person that is in the shit and surrounded by garbage right now? The person in the projects, the person in poverty, the person surrounded by the abuse and the survival instincts that you and I both, to some extent grew up in. You moved to Cali.
Yeah.
You were then alone again. Once you were divorced, you were alone with your 2 kids. So that's what life gave you to hear that voice.
Yeah.
My opinion.
Yep.
I was in jail. Silence. I got to hear myself and learn who I was. And it still took me a decade and a half to get to the place where I started to realize that. What can we say to those people who are hearing this and like, yeah, this sounds great, because it's coming from 2 students who have done the work over the course of years. What can we say to give them some hope, or just like, how can they get space? How important is it to get space? Not only from, first, the external distractions, the people that they love around them that we know are not healthy for them, but they can't see past that.
Yeah.
And then secondly, getting themselves the silence that they need to even internally reflect.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always going to say sit in silence, but also remove the distractions. Yeah. I think that in a world where we are being told that you have to do all of these things and you have to add people on social media, make sure you have the nice clothes, make sure you look presentable, make sure you have the nice car, make sure everything looks picture worthy, add the coach, add all of these things into your life. I actually believe that we should be doing the opposite and subtracting. We should strip ourselves of the things that bring us comfort so that we can understand who we are at the core. We are so busy adding external things to our lives to then validate who we think we are as a person. But we don't know ourselves until we are under pressure. And that is when your true character tends to come out. So if you want to get to know yourself, get yourself uncomfortable. Put yourself in a state of suffering by choice.
Right. As opposed to just being the victim of circumstance.
Right. You have to be able to exercise that muscle. And most people don't have the muscle of mental toughness, right? So when you actually make yourself do hard things, you get to prove to yourself that you are the person you say that you are, which then builds your confidence, which then builds your mental resiliency. Have hard conversations with people, builds your emotional intelligence, right? Your communication skills. Do things that feel so uncomfortable for you, but remove the distractions. Be unapologetic about cutting people off.
That's a tough one. And if you're not coming from a place of absolute pain, suffering, trauma, and then kind of remove yourself where you're away from those people,
yeah.
I found it very hard to let go because that's all I knew. I knew these people. I knew my family. It took years to accept the fact that I love you, but I've got to love you from over here.
Yep.
And I think that it is a poisonous belief that all human beings suffer, which is the family that you're born into, no matter how unhealthy, has to still be in your immediate circumference. Right. And it's something that, it's not a lie. I just think it's something that we have to come to the realization that we need to figure out who the fuck we are so we can be the best us, and then we can manage that. And then what we'll realize once we realize who we are is that we don't need to have that much negative shit in our life. So we're going to love you, but we're going to love you with the Heisman stiff arm, as I affectionately call it. It's like, you stay over there and I'm going to do my thing over here. I'm going to love you, but I'm going to love you from a safe place.
Right.
Because that energy that you're putting into my sphere is just, I don't want to say toxic or poisonous. It's just we're not on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
So for anybody who is suffering with this innate feeling that they're meant for more, but they have no fucking clue how to do it or how to exercise that muscle, it's addition by subtraction.
Yeah.
It is getting rid of the things that don't serve you. The people. I think the first thing maybe is the people that don't serve you. The environment. You know, if you're just tired of the same drama and gossip or bochinche and no bullshit, you need to get yourself away from that.
Right.
You really do. And it is hard because you care for these people.
Right.
But once you start to love yourself, then you realize, well, you know what? They're not loving me like I need to be loved anymore. And you start to give yourself permission to subtract the people and then the behaviors from your life.
But I think there's also another caveat to it too, which is your locus of power. It's what can I control and what can't I control. When we are working on our self-love, because the people that are listening, that maybe they're not at that place yet, right? But they can operate out of their locus of power. And their locus of power is taking a look at themselves and saying, okay, I love these people, but can I control what their finances look like? No. Can I control how they respond? No. Can I control how they treat me? No. Can I control, you name it? No. But what can I control in myself? I can control how often I choose to respond. I can control how I react. I can control my proximity. I can control who I choose to answer the phone for. You have these choices that you can make at any given time to protect your energy so that you are able to actually come to that place of self-love, so that you can enjoy that part of yourself. And when you do enough of that over time, that will support you in having solid boundaries, beginning to build confidence, having that sense of self-worth, and also proving to yourself that your time is precious and proving to yourself that you are worthy of taking this space so that you can grow. And what happens is by you honoring your locus of power, you start to radiate. And that radiation, that energy that starts to come off of your skin begins to transmute, and it begins to shine light into those people. Mm-hmm. And those people, sometimes they get bitter. But then over time, there is something about you that they're so fucking angry about that you have that they don't have. But when the time is right for them, may be one of their greatest awakenings.
I've realized that. I get goosebumps. Because I had to detach from people that I loved, both friends and family. And the ones that have had that realization have come back.
Exactly.
They want more, and they see, oh, well, fuck, that's my guy. Like,
exactly.
He comes from the same place I came from. And it's happened a few times in just this last month where I have friends that I haven't spoken to in a while reach out to me and be surprised that I picked up the phone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, motherfucker, you're my guy. You're my homie.
I don't care what you thought about me.
Why would I not pick up the phone for you? Like, they really feel like you've changed because it is a process of you become someone different to some extent. You're the same person. You just have different values, and you value your time and your peace more. So you don't share it with everybody. But their first inclination is to probably be like, oh, well, it's a reflection of where they're not going.
Yeah.
And then something clicks. And then they say, well, let me reach out to them.
Yep.
And boy, it's amazing. And not only do you radiate and become the light for certain individuals, unfortunately not everybody. Let's keep it real, 100%. We are not going to attract everybody back. Some people like to stay the same, and that's okay. I still love them just like that. And if we ever had a conversation, they would probably behave differently toward me than I would toward them. Yeah. Because I've seen it happen over and over again where people just have this skepticism. Like I'm doing something funny, or I'm into brujeria or some kind of craziness. Or I've had like the most wild accusations. Well, Sean changed his life. Well, what happened to him? Like something bad must have happened. No, something great happened. But more importantly than people occasionally coming back into your life from the past that you're able to light up, that transmutation and that energy field that you're letting off attracts new people to your life.
1,000%.
And that is where the real magic happens. It's when you start to do the things that you were put here to do and that God put in your heart, your gut, whatever you want to believe. The red carpet starts to roll out for you, and oh shit, there's a penny on the floor. Oh shit, $400.
You couldn't even prepare for what happens when you access that higher vibrational.
So I have that confidence now where I'm like, let me just throw all this money. I'm going to be in that room and I don't know how. I don't know why. But it's going to happen.
But you know why? Because you didn't plan in the future to be broke.
Yeah, well, definitely not. I've always been a hustler from the Bronx.
But that's the reason why, right? It's like you choose to invest into these things because you know that the return is always going to be there, which is a belief that you created in your mind.
Right.
You're like, I'm always provided for. I always figure it out. I always make more than what I invested into it. So because of that, you can throw the money at it and have no fear because you aren't planning on being broke in the future. You're planning on being 10 steps ahead of where you are right now.
It's crazy because I went through, or I'm still going through some financial stuff out of my control, just, cost of doing business when you're successful. And first inclinations to make more money, because that's me, abundance. Second inclination was like, well, how can I scale back spending? And then I spoke to somebody and was like, is that how you normally operate? I'm like, fuck no. I just make more money.
Yep.
And I talked myself, it was a short-lived conversation to start cutting costs. And you can be mindful, you can know your numbers, you can crunch. But I found that when I start to take that approach, the less than approach,
scarcity is created.
It starts to creep
it's like, oh, you want to play?
Yeah.
Let me show you more.
Yeah, exactly. But when you have the courage, and obviously this comes with wins and dreaming and investing in yourself, I tell people, you are the best investment you can ever make. I am going to spend more money. Well, I have spent more money in the last 12 months on personal development than I ever would have imagined. I could have went to Harvard for a few years, room and board and everything. And I don't know what the return's going to be, but I know it's going to be 10 or 20-fold. Yeah. I'm just going to say priceless. The return is going to be priceless. When I did Tony Robbins Platinum, I spent over $100,000 a year to be part of that group and travel. And the first question I would hear from anybody who was still working their way up to these bigger numbers was, what's the ROI? And return on investment.
What do you want it to be?
What do you want it to be? It's going to be my new answer when they ask me. But for then, what my answer was, well, listen, I went into that program. I was ready to get a divorce. I was extremely unhappy with, myself and therefore my wife and my kids.
Yep.
And I was just, now I'm living a life of my dreams. And what's different? Nothing. Just the perspective that I was able to soak up. So, I mean, am I making more money than I was then? Yeah, not like a ton more, a little more, but I'm still willing to throw so much money at it because the way that I feel about life is priceless. The way that I feel about my queen and my children is priceless. The coaches and mentors I have around me, the people I get to share conversations with is priceless. The fact that, I get to meet interesting people from all over the world, and that's an education in and of itself. So to anybody who is reluctant to spend money to be coached or to learn, shame on you. Shame on you, because you're telling me that investing in a college degree that costs you in upwards of $70,000 or $100,000 room and board at a private institution, even at a state level, it's $25,000 a year. There is no way that you're going to convince me that $25,000, let's say on the low end, was not better spent to be in a room full of real world professionals who are having conversations like this and still killing it in business, and still focused on familial growth and marital growth and parental growth.
Yep.
That shit is priceless.
But it's every area of your life. Like, as a coach, we're giving people their fucking lives back. Like you said, you just said, like, I invested in all of this. Have I seen a return? Has anything changed? Not really. But everything changed.
Right.
You changed.
Right.
Like, your life is completely different because of your ability to make that investment on yourself. And I don't think that people are able to tangibly, monetarily quantify what the change is. However, everything changes, and there's more vision, more opportunity, more abundance, because your willingness to invest in yourself, which then becomes the payoff for your family, for your future, for your body, for your mind, for your health. All of it. When you choose to invest into a coach, you're not investing in them. You are saying, I am willing to completely change my life in a container that you hold space in me, like for me for. Like, if you're willing to invest in a coach, you are saying, I trust you to hold space for me to see all of me. And that's the most beautiful part.
Right. And when you've got someone on the other end, albeit a Zoom call, phone call, or if you're fortunate enough to have in-person coaching, you're getting a lens into you that you're not even seeing yet, but it's available to you. So we've got so many external distractions now, politics not being the first of which, just destroys people's ability to believe in themselves. I cannot, maybe I don't want to say I can't remember a time, because, you go back to the civil rights movement in this country, which was fucking 60 years ago, and you're having it's never been so divided. No, it's always been divided. Yeah. It's just that you have a tool in your cell phone that feeds you the division, feeds you the limited belief system, and keeps you into your corner of beliefs. So I don't think the world is any different. I don't think human nature is any different. No. I think the way we receive and believe information is different. So, I mean, the coaching is just, it's like opening a door to new information. And I think that the traditional form of education in this country, while it does serve a purpose, and if you're going to be a professional in law or medicine or engineering or some kind of specific field, all for it.
Go right ahead.
But the liberal arts profession, like economics degree that I have, is completely fucking worthless. The experience of going up and meeting people I would have never met served me tremendously. But I mean, that same amount of money I could have put into a mastermind or, a real estate, seminar or something like that, which would have been much more valuable to me as a human being. School is just teaching you to regurgitate information, which 99% of you will not reuse unless you're in those fields that I just mentioned. So let's get back to the coaching, because I know that you are an amazing human being with a hell of a story. So you've got to be an amazing coach. Where are your clients coming from in terms of parts of the country? How are you attracting them? And how are you retaining them? Yeah. Quite honestly, let's talk about the business of it.
Yeah. So I've started my business online. A lot of my clients, most of my clients are all virtual, whether that's in the UK, the United States, like it doesn't really matter where they come from. Most of them are women, as I mentioned already. But I do have a funnel, right? Like typically the people that come into my circle come in the form of like a lower ticket offer. And then there's just the nurturing sequence to bring them into one-on-one. But what I've noticed is those who end up joining me one-on-one don't leave. And so I have a really low fall off rate for my one-on-one people, because even if they leave, they end up coming back a couple months later. And really what that comes down to is like there's always a level for us to grow into that we desire for ourselves. And the only role that I play in it is being able to see the parts of yourself that you don't even see yet. Right? Like I have this beautiful way of being intuitive and being able to feel someone energetically, and also to know things that they don't even know, or to see maybe some things that need to be reframed. And so our journey through together, I really believe that like long-term mentorship is the way to go. I don't believe in having a coach and then changing a coach every couple of years or months, because there's no depth there. You need a coach that you are with for a long time, that you can go super deep so that they can understand how you think, so they understand how you are going to make decisions in the future and be like, hey, is this going to be the right choice? Do you think that we could do it differently here? What do you think about this? And so when it comes to like mentorship, one-on-one proximity is the best way to go when it comes to wanting to build something really big for yourselves. Now, I do have a portion of my clients that come to me just for mindset, trauma work, identity work, all of my mental and emotional release practice tools. Like I've got my NLP, mental and emotional release therapy, which I think some people call timeline therapy. There's Reiki, there's communication, like there's a bunch of just leadership, right? Like self-accountability, self-mastery, leadership. And then I have those who are wanting to build a personal brand. And they're like, hey, I actually want to become a coach. I want to build an online presence. Cool. We dive deep into the identity work, because the truth is when you're building an online brand, you have to be yourself.
Right. I think a lot of people don't realize the importance of authenticity. Yeah. And social media is an easy trap to think that you have to look, sound, or prepare a certain way. And I've had younger, guys, when I do my social, kind of point me to, well, it's got to be scripted and you got to do this and that to attract. And I understand why, but I'm just like, I'm just going to do what I do.
There's a strategy, but then there's also a flow. Right? Like you are who you are for a reason, and people admire and appreciate that for a reason. So why completely get rid of who you are just so that you could perform, right? Like just so that the numbers are there? What do the numbers mean if once they get into your proximity, that's not who you are? There needs to be a like trust factor, relatability, so that someone knows when they're seeing you online, that is who they are getting when they hire you. Because if you just start showing up as someone completely different on the calls versus what you showed up online, you're screwed. Your retention rate is going to be fucked.
I've heard that about a lot of the personalities, big names on social media, and particularly the rah-rah, fucking men's men, alpha male bullshit that we see with a lot of these these influencers, and then you meet them in person and they're fucking teddy bears. Yeah. Or it's like not like that. And again, I'm sure when you're in their programs, you understand the dynamic. It may be something to drive you into the program, and then they give you what you need, not what you want or you expected. Yep. So there's value to both, and I love the authenticity, but also with some kind of structure. I'm so enamored by your story and particularly the overcoming of trauma.
Yep.
Because in my community, Black and brown, inner city, poverty, the community that I'm looking to impact as much as possible, that is ever present. So you mentioned that you do some work there. Now, we have this belief that therapy is the way to go. And we also know that rehashing a story over and over again is not the way to go. So it's a fine line, because therapy is, in my opinion, invaluable, and it has helped countless people. But there's also a fine line between staying stuck in the trauma and moving past it.
1,000%.
How are you able to do that? Mm-hmm. And how do you help your clients do that?
Yeah. So not knocking therapy. You do what you need to do to find whatever healing you need. I believe that every modality works. I really do. You want to go sit on a mountain for a month by yourself and journal? That could work. You want to go and do NLP or mental and emotional release therapy? That could work. You want to go exercise and tear your muscles and push yourself? That also can work. The only thing that they are doing is they are changing their state, their focus, their beliefs, and they're shifting the language around what they're experiencing. They are learning themselves. And so with the work that I do with my clients, the number one thing is always, who do you think you are? What do you say about yourself? What are the worst things that you tell yourself when no one's listening?
That brings me to like a parent scolding a kid. Who do you think you are?
Who do you think you are?
And it would be so awesome if they came out, I am abundant beyond belief, Mom. I am a billionaire. I fly in my private jet, and I impact as many lives as possible.
Done. The work is done.
That's a fucking clip we can create for this episode. But yeah, who do you believe you are? And trauma is something that I guess is downloaded into us, and we believe that we were victims.
We believe that we are the limitations that other people have placed upon ourselves.
Which are essentially their limitations.
1,000%. But once you understand that, you can now say, this doesn't belong to me anymore. Right. This was never mine. Right. This trauma, this perfectionism, that was never mine. And you start peeling back the layers of the onion. And what you're left with is you. And that's why I always say the process through life isn't about doing all of these things. It's actually about unlearning and being. You are the creator of your own life, right? And so what that means is you get to undo what other people have placed upon you so that you can bloom into who you really are.
So who is Jaymie now? And what is your vision for the future?
Yeah. I mean, who I am is I'm a mother. I'm a friend. I am you. I am me. I am all of it. And there is no limitation for what's possible. But I know that for me, it's just about impacting on a deeper level. It's about, I have this universal desire for the world to heal people, right? And so the desire that I have in my heart is to help people understand that the limitations that they've gone through and the pain that they've suffered through can actually be their greatest asset. When you learn how to take your pain and use it as your power and then share that with the world, we create a universal energetic of healing. And so my goal and my journey throughout this life is to continue to share what's possible and how to help people dream bigger and how to help people be okay with being themselves.
How do you instill some of these values into your children?
Oh my gosh, you should hear us in the morning. On the way to school, we have like a little chant, and it's just beautiful because they watch me, right? I think one of the things that I appreciate about my parenting style is I don't hide things from my children. I'm very vocal with my kids, and I tell them the hard stuff. I tell them what life looks like. I tell them to dream big. I tell them what's possible. And when we are faced in those times where they're like doubting themselves, we do reframe it, right? And so I think it's important to let your kids experience their journey, experience their pain, experience losing friends or losing a pet, right? Or like these things. But it's also important to show them and remind them like how big life can be and how pain is just a part of it. Like what are we going to do about it now? What are we going to do about the things that we face in our lives? But I think open communication, creating a safe space, like that's how I parent. That's my parenting style. My kids know that they can come to me with anything I won't judge them. I'm not going to scold them. I'm going to create a safe environment for them to share their vulnerabilities with. Because one thing that I've noticed is that kids don't feel comfortable talking to their parents about anything. And I don't want to create a household like that. My kids know we have a safe space. Your friends are going through something, bring them over. Your friends are struggling, your friends didn't eat today, cool, pack them lunch. We created a healthy place where like it is a safe space. I remember like it was maybe a month ago, there were 7 kids in my house. 7. Every friend had a friend. Every kid had a friend plus a friend.
That's all about.
And it was madness. But I looked at the dining table as they were all eating their pasta and I started to cry. And I was like, damn, the thing that I wanted and craved as a child was a safe home to where I had my family and my friends. And I created that. I created what I craved. And I think that's what our goal is in the world is become the person that you needed growing up so that you can become the beacon of hope for those who are coming after you.
I don't think there's a better place to end this amazing conversation. I just want to thank you again for coming. I want to thank you again for just inspiring me to share my story and share my truth. And it wasn't that you did it for that reason. It was just you being you inspired me to be me. So thank you. And I just want you to tell our audience where they can find you, how they can find out more about your incredible coaching program, how they find you online, or any other information that they need to know about you, this amazing person who's overcome so much.
Yeah. Everywhere is Jaymie Lee Gerena. So Jaymielee. Gerena is Gerena. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google me, you'll get the website, blogs, all of that good stuff.
You would be the one and only Jaymie Gerena, I would imagine, right? Online?
Pretty close. I think there's like a couple spam accounts of me, so make sure you get the right one.
Okay, be mindful.
But yeah.
Well, make sure that you find her. I just want to thank everybody, as always, for tuning into the Real Mentors podcast. We have an amazing example of the power of mentorship and the power of belief and the power of overcoming any obstacle. So just continue to believe in yourself, continue to foster hope, and as always, let's get it. Until next time.
Peace.